Well, good evening, everybody. This is Jim Wickens from the Draft Professor, and I am going to go through my final first round mock. Uh, Robbie from the Huddle Report asked for a link to the podcast where I discussed the first round mock I submitted. So I am doing the podcast now and will be sending the Huddle Report the link to this very brief show in a few minutes. But here is the mock um, that I submitted. So I think everybody's got Mendoza going number one overall to the Raiders. Um, I have Arvell Reese going to the Jets at 2. Francis Maui Noah going to the Cardinals at 3. Um, so I have Jordan Tyson going to the Titans at 4. Um, and this is I think my next two picks, Jordan Tyson at 4 and Jermod McCoy at 5. These are things that are really difficult to know, like, where the medicals are on both players. And ultimately, I'm erring on the side of medicals are clearing, and this draft lacks some blue chip talent. So that's why Tyson going at 4 to the Titans, McCoy at 5 to the Giants. That's why I did that. It's very clear the Titans need a wide receiver. Very clear the Giants need a corner. And I'm going for positional premium with those picks. Sticking with positional premium, I'm going with Monroe Freeling at 6. I thought about Carnell Tate to the Browns there. But just listening to the other draft professors and listening to people, with the Cleveland Browns, I think I'm 50-50 on Tate or Freeling there, but I went with Monroe Freeling at 6. And then I had Miami trading up for Mansour Delane at 7. So the Commanders trading down, I think, is going to happen. So I had to figure out who would be trading up to the Commanders spot. Miami has 4 third-round picks, and the drop off at corner after McCoy and Delane is significant, and Miami is starting Storm Duck at corner. So I had Miami trading up for Mansour Delane. I think the Commanders are trading the pick. The biggest question is who's trading up to 7. I had the Saints taking Sonny Styles at 8. I want to give a shout out to Drew Collins. Like, Drew has been adamant that Styles is a perfect fit for the Saints. So, positional value, I could see the Saints going a couple different directions. But Drew, you were definitely in my head when I made that pick there at 8. I had the Chiefs taking Ruben Bain at 9. I could see the Chiefs trading up for Ruben Bain. So I'm hoping I got the player team combo right, even if I didn't get Bain to the Chiefs at 9 correct. I think there's a really good chance the Chiefs are trading up to get Ruben Bain. I have the Giants taking Jeremiah Love at 10 overall. Again, I would think like the Giants would consider Love at 5. So the question would be, did I get both Love and McCoy correct to the Giants and I just got them in the wrong order? There'll be some funny conversations there, I think. So the Commanders at 11. It was which Ohio State player? Was it Caleb Downs or Carnell Tate? Ultimately, I side with the logic of if you have a young quarterback, you get the quarterback weapons. If the Commanders execute the draft well, they're not picking in the top 16. So you're not going to get a player similar to Tate's ability in future drafts if you're competing for your division. So get your quarterback a cost-controlled rookie wide receiver. Love Carnell Tate there at 11. Dallas, I think the board fell really well for Dallas. So if Dallas gets Caleb Downs at 12, I think Dallas calls round 1 a win. Definitely need a safety. Omar Cooper Jr. to the Rams at 13. So again, shout out to Owen, because Owen was the one that kind of put this pick in my head before. Um, so this is Omar Cooper Jr. over Mekhi Lemon. This is me saying that the athletic testing for Lemon is going to push him down the board a little bit. So I'm going with Omar Cooper Jr. at 13 to the Rams. I think the Rams, like at 13, would be looking at like Omar Cooper Jr., Mekhi Lemon, Casey Concepcion. I think all of those players are kind of in play. Sadiq was also an option here. Um, for the Ravens, I went with Spencer Fano at tackle. Now, Fano could play center. He could play right tackle. He could play guard. The Ravens need offensive line help. So I think the positional versatility of Fano is better than taking Vega here. So um, David Bailey dropped all the way to 15 overall. So while he may be ranked higher on the board, David Bailey isn't necessarily a scheme fit for all the teams up above. So for example, Dallas, would they rather have David Bailey or Caleb Downs? Well, if you traded Micah Parsons because he didn't defend the run, you're probably not drafting David Bailey, for example. So Bailey dropping to 15 for the Bucks is where I am now. At 16, I chose Denzel Boston to the Jets over Casey Concepcion and over Mekhi Lemon. So going for the big bodied wide receiver for the Jets at 16 overall. The Lions, I have them addressing offensive tackle by getting right tackle Blake Miller from Clemson at 17 overall. I have the Vikings going Avion Terrell at 18 as the third corner off the board. I have Kenyon Sadiq going at 19 to the Carolina Panthers. And again, there's a lot of different ways the Panthers can go. I don't think the Panthers would go wide receiver in round one 3 straight years. So, there's been a lot of people that have come on Draft Professor. And shout out to Jordan. I know that your wife just gave birth, huge Panthers fan, that podcast with Draft Professor. And he has definitely been biased towards wide receivers. I just don't think that's a good use of resources. You should address a different position and give Xavier Legette one more year. We knew when Legette was drafted, he was a project. You can't expect him to be making immediate impact. So I'm expecting big things out of Legette in year 3 as we enter the 2026 season. Dallas at 20, I have them taking Keldrick Falk. Between Falk's age and his high floor to defend the run, I don't see Falk getting out of round 1. And I really do like the fit with him in Dallas. I have Pittsburgh taking Casey Concepcion at 21. And again, so I have Concepcion and Boston going higher than Mekhi Lemon. So that is the Steelers passing on Mekhi Lemon, going for Casey Concepcion, more athletic, and Concepcion adds more dimensions to the Steelers' offense than Mekhi Lemon would. Okay, so then I have Vega Ioane from Penn State, the guard, going off the board to the Chargers. I think the Chargers are sprinting that pickup. They need interior offensive line help. So if you flip the Fano and Ioane picks, I could see that, right? And then shout out to David from the Philadelphia Eagles News. So David has been telling me that the Eagles need to draft a tackle. Howie Roseman tends to pick players a year before they're needed. Ian Achor could also play guard this year for the Eagles before kicking outside to tackle next year. And then 24, I had some problems with this pick. So I was looking at the board and I was like, what are the Browns going to do? So most of the wide receivers were off the board. I could see them going Mekhi Lemon, but the Browns have some guardrails on the players that they pick. But more importantly, think of a defensive line with Mason Graham, Caleb Banks, and Myles Garrett. Okay, I don't want to play that defensive line. So this is the best get better. If Banks were fully healthy, he's going a lot higher than 24. And to me, the players that are selected after Caleb Banks here, there's a tier drop between pick 24 and 25. So this is the Browns selecting the best player available. And that was why I went with Caleb Banks there. I tried to find, like, is there a team that would trade up there? Maybe the Cardinals would, kind of thing to get Ty Simpson, but you'll see that trade coming up in a minute. Then I have the Bears at 25 going with Kristen Miller, the defensive lineman. So I don't think the Bears would wait until round 2 to get their defensive tackle. Both of Chicago's round 2 picks are late. So unless they're planning to package both second-round picks to move up in round 2, Chicago's got to get their defensive tackle here, because my opinion is the drop from Miller to, let's say, Lee Hunter or Dominique Orange is significant enough that you grab Miller here. So I was considering Miller or Caden McDonald to Chicago. I opted for Miller here, get help on the defensive line. Then I have the Cardinals trading up into round 1 to get quarterback Ty Simpson from Alabama. I have the 49ers at 27 selecting Caleb Lomu, the tackle from Utah. So again, this was for the 49ers. This was again, it's kind of sorting through what do they need and where is the value on the board. So the 49ers will need to address tackle at some point in the draft. And the drop off from Lomu to the other tackles that you would be considering means that you're probably waiting until round 4 to address tackle. And I could see the 49ers doing that, but I just think, you don't have to play Lomu immediately. So I mean, I like that pick. But again, like, my confidence level of pick 27, I'm just going to say isn't that high. I'm a little bit more confident in pick 28. So I had Caden McDonald going at 28 to the Houston Texans. So again, there's like a mini run on defensive tackles here. And I did a couple versions of this before I submitted it to the Huddle report. Now, this is one that Chiefs fans, I think, would love. So I have Mekhi Lemon falling all the way to pick 29 to the Kansas City Chiefs. So if the Chiefs, I could see the Chiefs trading up to, see where Cleveland is to select Mekhi Lemon. So I could see the Chiefs trading up to get Mekhi Lemon. The fact that he falls to him at 29, if I get that pick right in the Huddle Report contest, you will not hear the end of it from me. I will be bragging about that pick for a while if I get that one right. And then Miami, I have selecting edge Malachi Lawrence at pick 30. So there were a couple things that factored into that. So trying to put my Green Bay Packers hat on, Malachi Lawrence, from an edge perspective, hits the measurables that a team like Green Bay would love. So I'm essentially saying, Miami does need an edge. And where is the value on the board? So Miami is likely going to address core positions So that would be the trenches on both sides of the ball, cornerback early, and then at some point, I also think they would be addressing wide receiver in rounds 2 and 3. Miami at the end of this mock would have 3 third-round picks because they traded one of the third-round picks to move up for Delane. I have the Patriots selecting Dylan Thieneman, the safety from Oregon. Several things factored into this. So, first, the grade on Thieneman is high enough to go in round 1. Second, Thieneman was invited to the draft. So, from that standpoint, getting Thieneman into the round 1 mock was important. And again, like the tea leaves for the Vikings are that they're either going to go, defensive back or defensive line in round 1. Because I could see Malachi Lawrence even going as high as pick 18. Um, and then I have the Seahawks selecting Cassius Howell. Now, I was trying to find a trade. I don't think Seattle's picking at 32. But I couldn't think of a team that was gonna trade up to pick 32 for a player. Like, I was looking at the board, Peter Woods was there, so maybe a team like the Chargers tries to trade up, but ultimately, I just settled on Cassius Howell going to Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks, and a lot of that is also a scheme fit. So, I think Seattle is the type of team that could unlock Cassius Howell. So, I I don't get points if Seattle trades down and gets Cassius Howell, right? So, with the rules of what the contests are. So, I have Cassius Howell going at 32 to Seattle. I don't have a high degree of confidence that Seattle is making that pick, but that is what I entered for the contest. So, Huddle Report, you do a great thing with your round 1 contest and your top 100 contest. I am honored to be included, in the contest. I look forward to seeing if I compete with my score from last year. I think last year I got 81 of the top 100 correct, and I scored approximately 22 or 25 points in round 1. Um, I don't think I'm getting 25 points in round 1 this year. So, we'll see. We will see. But, for everybody that has been following Draft Professor this draft cycle, Brandon, I see you in the chat. It's good to see you. We'll have another podcast a little bit later on tonight. I needed to get this podcast out for the Huddle Report per their request. And yeah, I'm looking forward to live coverage of the NFL Draft. Draft Professor will have 5 podcasts from Thursday through Sunday that are covering the NFL Draft. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you on a podcast again in about 50 minutes where Newt and Owen are going to do their prop bets for the NFL Draft. Thank you very much.